Chapter 19. Each morning at 10 o'clock, Fred Larson walked 2 blocks to the post office to retrieve the bank's mail and his coveted Wall Street Journal. At 5 feet 9 inches tall, 160 pounds, white complexion, and prematurely gray hair, Fred wore round wire-rimmed glasses that accented his serious demeanor. He grew up in Butte, Montana, where his father worked underground in the Anaconda copper mine. Fred graduated from the University of Washington in 1899, where he studied business and accounting. Then, he returned to Butte and began working at Yegan Brothers Savings Bank. With his natural abilities combined with his education, Fred was recruited by Wells Fargo and spent 10 years in San Francisco. Missing Montana, Fred later moved to Conifer Cliffs to serve as the branch manager for Meadowlark County Bank of Montana, which folded in early 1922 due to uncollectible loans resulting from the drought. Fred was happy to be able to stay in Conifer Cliffs and reopen the bank with Dax M.C. Catron's capital infusion, but for the life of him, he couldn't figure out where or how Dax got his money. Although Dax claimed to have been lucky in the markets while living in New York, Fred thought Dax lacked the knowledge to be able to make the kind of money he had spent since he arrived in Conifer Cliffs. Rennie Kelly, on the other hand, Fred thought, could at least have an intelligent conversation about the markets. Unbeknownst to Fred, Rennie had learned to trade from Jevil Zumber, his broker. On this late October morning, Fred opened the mail in his back office, while Polly M.C. Catron and Samantha Smith worked as tellers up front. Fred expected Dax and John Smith to discuss 2 loans he had been working on. Meanwhile, he opened his Wall Street Journal, which featured an article about the 6-bank heist in Chicago that had occurred some 3 months earlier. "Polly," Fred hollered through his open door, "you may want to read this article since you seem obsessed with the cops solving the case you were involved in." Polly stepped into Fred's office. "The last news I read about that case said they had identified the crime family who pulled off the heist, but they have no idea where the money went when all the thugs were killed. The only lead is some guy named Fontanilla, a missing person who may have run off with it." Dax listened to the exchange between Fred and Polly. "Are you guys going to solve the 6-bank heist? Maybe Polly has all the money stashed somewhere," Dax joked, feeling confident no one would ever figure him out. "When you're done with the journal, I'd like to read it too. I'll leave it on your desk when Fred and I are finished with it," Polly said, smiling. "Here comes John for your meeting." Fred Larson sat at his desk. Dax and John Smith sat in client chairs across from him to discuss the Coulter and Clark loans. "John, what do you think about buying these 2 guys' hay and having them winter our cows instead of loaning them money to buy their own cows?" Fred asked. "I'm worried as hell. Winter is so close, and we don't have any hay to feed our cows. The weather has been relatively mild so far, but it could change at any time now that November is nearly here." I tried to convince Dax to leave the cattle and the Bitterroot and buy hay from the same people he bought the cows from. He took a big gamble, bringing them home in October with no provisions for winter. So far, we've been lucky, but luck is going to run out as November approaches, John said, a worried look on his face. "If you can close a deal to buy hay from Coulter and Clark, I'd do it as soon as possible." Fred moved forward in his chair. "I agree with John. It would be beneficial for them to sell their hay and avoid going into debt. Let's see if they will go for it, at least for this year," he recommended. "Do you know these guys, John?" Dax asked. "I've met them both, but I know Alton better than I know Ames. Let's drive up and see if we can work out a deal for them to sell us their hay fed to our cows through the winter." The wheels turned in Dax's head. It's only 15 miles to Juniper Junction and 30 to Cold Creek. Fred and I have already visited both Coulter's and Clark's places to inventory their hay from a collateral perspective. Let's all drive up there together and see what kind of a deal we can make with them. Tomorrow is Saturday. The bank is closed. You need to go with us, Fred. Yes, we need to get it done as soon as possible. I hope we can make the deal, Fred agreed. After Dax and John left the bank, Fred asked Polly, "Did you know Dax when he was in New York making all his money?" "No. He'd already moved to Montana when I met him. He took the train out to Chicago to watch the U.S. Open in Skokie, and met him on the golf course while we were following the game." "When was that game?" Fred asked. "It was just a day or two after the robbery, so maybe July 12th and 13th, I think," Polly replied. Fred turned and walked back into his office, thinking he hadn't heard of Dax in Conifer Cliffs until sometime around the end of July or the first part of August. At 7:30 Saturday morning, Fred, Dax, and John pulled into Alton Coulter's barnyard. Alton looked out the window when his dogs started barking. "Looks like we have company, Sarah. Better put on another pot of coffee." "Okay. Do you think the banker approved your loan?" Sarah asked, recognizing two of the men as they got out of the car. "Don't know. I wonder what old one-armed John Smith is doing with them. And look at Dax, still hobbling along with crutches," Alton said, walking toward the front door. "Good morning, fellas. Come on in and have some coffee." Sarah just put on a fresh pot. "I think you know John Smith. He runs Dax's ranching operation," Fred said. "How are you, John? It's been a while. Please have a seat. Sarah's coffee will be ready in a minute." "What the heck happened to you, Dax? I was afraid to ask you last time you were here in case you got shot by a jealous husband and didn't want to talk about it," Alton joked. "A broken leg and a zipper down your cheek doesn't sound like you were having fun." "Had a bare horse pile up," Dax answered. "Wow, that doesn't sound fun at all," Sarah said. "Damn, sure wasn't." They all sat down around a large, round, oak kitchen table. Fred leaned back in his chair and began. "Dax and I have been talking about the bank loan you want. After considering it, we have a different proposal for you, Alton. As you know, times have been tough around here for a few years, and the people who had no debt are the only ones making it through these hard times. We know you have a lot of hay and want to buy cows to feed it to, but we have a different idea we'd like to run by you." "Run away. I'm all ears," Alton offered. "Dax has a bunch of cows that need hay and a place to winter. He would like to have you feed your hay to his cows instead of you buying cows to feed it to. There aren't many people buying hay, but Dax needs it as soon as the weather turns and his grass runs out," Fred explained. Sarah poured each of them a cup of coffee. "Here's sugar and cream. Help yourself." "Thank you, Sarah," Dax said. Each one gave her a nod of thanks. "So, you will buy my hay and pay me to feed it to your cows here at my place?" Alton asked, looking at Dax. "Yes, I think it would be easier to bring the cows here than to try to haul the hay to them," Dax explained. "If Amos and you would both agree, we could drive the cows up to his place first, where the weather is a little colder and it snows a little more. When we have fed all of his hay, then we can move them down here, where the weather is milder, and feed them your hay while the cows calve. Would you pay for the hay up front and then pay us wages to feed it?" Alton asked. "Yeah, if that's how you want to do it. I will pay you market price for the hay and day wages to feed and care for the cows throughout the winter, including calving and doctoring. You would be working for John." "That's who I work for when I help with the cows," Dax admitted. "Why don't we all drive up to Amos's place and see what he thinks?" Alton suggested. "We've got room in the Chevy," Dax offered, "but I'm not leaving this cup of coffee until it's empty. It's sure a nice Indian summer we've been having, but that could change any day. If we are going to do this, we should get the cows moved as soon as possible," Alton reasoned. "How many cows are we talking about?" "We had 250 pairs on the home ranch, and we bought 450 pairs in the Bitterroot and trailed them home. So we have around 700 pairs. But we will be weaning and selling some of the calves," Dax answered, tipping his cup for the last slurp. "If it's a tough winter, I don't think Amos and I have enough hay for that many cows. But if it's a mild one, we'll be okay," Alton stated. "If we run out, do any of your neighbors have any extra?" Dax asked. I'm sure we can find some in the spring if we need it, Alton affirmed. Is everyone ready to go? Whoop, Dax asked. They all stood, thanked Sarah, and filed out the door. Here's a little something I brought for you, Alton, Dax smiled, reaching under the seat of the Chevy. I don't know if you want to take it in the house or hide it from your wife in the barn. White lightning, Alton snickered. Better put it in the barn. At least I don't have to worry about it freezing. He hid it out of sight in the barn, returned, and got into the back seat of Dax's Chevy with John. Nice car, Dax, Alton said. I've never ridden in such a nice car. They motored up Cold Creek 15 miles to the tiny town that shared the drainage's name. Behind the only house in Cold Creek, Amos Clark, his son Harold, and nephew Sean Coulter split and stacked their winter's wood. I have to come up here to see my boy, Alton smiled. I can't keep him and his cousin apart. Neither one of them has a brother, so I guess they think they're brothers. Next weekend, maybe the two of them will come down to my place, and I can get some work out of them. How are they cousins? John asked. Their mothers are sisters. They're old Harry Thompson's daughters. You had to have known Harry, Alton said. Yes, I did know Harry, but I didn't know anything about his family, John replied, getting out of the car. Hi, Dad, 6-year-old Sean chirped, standing up with an armload of wood. You boys going to help me with our wood next weekend? Alton asked. Sure, Dad, I don't want to get cold this winter, Sean replied. Amos, good to see you. John shook his hand. Long way from home, aren't you? Amos commented. These days, I go wherever Dax takes me, John said. I see Dax still has 4 legs and a zipper running down his face, just like last time he was here, Amos joked. Only temporary, I hope. Dax responded. Tell Mildred to put on the coffee pot. We have some business to talk about, Alton said to Amos. The boys don't need your help anyway. Sean took the splitting mop. I wanted to have Uncle Amos's job. Just don't break the handle. I don't have another one, Amos warned. You mean because you broke one the other day? Harold giggled at his father. Do as I say, not as I do, Amos answered, pinching his son's nose. Come on in the house. Mildred, pour us 5 cups of coffee. Fred and Dax want to give us $1 million. That should be worth 5 cups of coffee, Mildred smiled, stoking the wood-cooked stove. She filled the white speckled, blue coffee pot with water and threw in a few scoops of ground coffee from a red tin of Hill's Brothers. Amos, Dax, and I have been considering your loan, and we have a different proposal for your consideration. I know you have put up a lot of hay, and you want to buy some cows, but Dax has 700 cows and no hay for the winter. He would like to buy Alton's and your hay and pay you day wages to feed and look after his cows this winter. This would keep you out of debt, get your hay sold, and give you an income, Fred explained. Sounds interesting. Amos lit his pipe. Buying cows would delay any income for a year until we sold calves. We would also be paying interest all that time. Why don't you fellers enjoy Mildred's coffee? Alton and I will go help the boys stack wood and talk about it for a time. Amos drew in a breath of velvet pipe tobacco and exhaled through his nose. Give these guys some of your coffee cake and keep them entertained for a few, Mildred. This sounds like a good deal to me, Amos, Alton remarked once they were outside. It's kind of a dream come true, all right, Amos replied, puffing smoke. We might be able to sell our hay and work for him for years to come. I wonder where Dax got all his money. I heard he bought a big chunk of land down around Conifer Cliffs, 700 cows, and the bank. He must be loaded. It sounds to me like we should hook up with him. All we have to do is say yes to his deal, right? Alton asked, coughing in Amos's smoke. God, I wish you didn't smoke that damn thing. It keeps my nose warm, Amos smiled. If we're going to feed those cows all winter, you'll need to keep your nose warm too. Let's take the deal, but let's get the money for all the hay up front. Sure, he already offered that, Alton agreed. Let's do it. Okay, Alton exclaimed, walking back into the kitchen. Amos followed. Let's do it. You two have already inventoried our hay when we made our loan application. You know how much we have and what the market price is. Yes, we do, and here is your cash, along with the bill of sale for your signature. Fred slid an envelope to Alton. And here is yours, Amos. We need to trail the cows to Cold Creek in the next week or so, and if you have any grass they can eat before the snow flies, we will pay you for that. Dax offered Amos and Alton. Do you need any help trailing them up here? Amos asked. Dax pointed to John. Yeah, we could use both of you for that, John said. We have plenty of horses. Just bring your saddles and bridles. We can start Thursday morning. I think we'd rather ride our horses, Alton counted. We'll have our boys ride them down to my place today. We'll ride down to your place on Wednesday and stay overnight in your barn, so we'll be there by Thursday morning. Then, I guess we have a plan, John agreed. What's with all the blood on this money? Amos asked, counting the bills. Who did you kill to get it? Only a groundhog. I buried it in a duffel bag on my way out west, and a groundhog made a nest in it. I shot the groundhog, and he went back down his hole and bled out. Dax laughed, telling a part of his story that now seemed humorous. I can trade it for clean bills at the bank if you want, Fred offered. I suppose it's okay, but if I have any trouble spending it, I'll trade it in with you, Amos said. Are you sure this isn't human blood? I'm sure. I have yet to shoot anyone, Dax chuckled. I just don't want to get mixed up with some guy that kills his help on payday so he doesn't have to pay them, Amos laughed. He pays me on time every time, John assured Amos. Don't worry. Mildred, will you please pour us each a shot of moonshine? Amos asked. We need to seal this deal. I'll furnish the shine, Dax offered. Fred, will you get the bottle from under the car seat? I hate walking with these crutches. Mildred set out glasses for everyone. Fred came back and passed the bottle around. Here's to good business between us in the future, Dax toasted. Harold and Sean came into the house. Go back outside and brush off the sawdust and wood chips. It's hard enough to keep the house clean without you two dragging in more dirt, Mildred said. We stacked all the wood that we could split, but we can't split the ones that have big knots in them, Harold said from the mud room. I've got a new project for you boys. Go out and saddle up Rusty and Deke and ride them down to Alton's house so they'll be there for Alton and me to ride to John's place on Wednesday afternoon. I'll come down in the truck this evening to get you, Harold, Amos instructed his son. Okay, Dad. How old are the boys? Dax asked. They're both 6, Alton answered. They're going to be good hands in a few years. Looks like you got a good start on that, Dax replied. Pretty soon, you and Amos can sit back and drink your shine and let the boys do the work. That will be a while, Amos said. Alton excused himself. He stepped down the porch and ambled through the fallen yellow leaves to the barn, pleased knowing he had money in his pocket and income through the winter. He checked the boys' cinches to see if they were tight. Mildred packed each boy a sandwich and an apple for their trip. Be sure you stay on the main road, so if something happens, we will be able to find you. You'll have to trot to get to Juniper Junction by dark, Alton told the boys, helping them mount their horses. Be sure to stop at the water trough down the road to get a drink and water the horses. Okay, Dad, Sean promised. Okay, Unce, Harold hollered over his shoulder, already out the gate. Mildred served the men beef and noodles in a savory gravy, homemade bread, another round of coffee, and rhubarb pie. With their stomachs full, Dax, John, and Fred headed back to Conifer Cliffs. Amos drove Mildred and Alton in his international truck to Alton's house. Halfway to Juniper Junction, they passed the young boys trotting their horses, giggling, and having the time of their lives. When Dax arrived home, Polly met him at the door. I received a letter and a clipping out of the Chicago newspaper from my brother today. It states that the police have new leads to solve the 6-bank heist. Bain thinks the FBI may be calling or visiting us to interview me since I was an eyewitness to the crime. Interesting, Dax replied. Do they know where the money went? It didn't say that, but it sounds like they are getting close. I hope they catch everyone involved. Those mobsters are such bad people. They sure are, Dax said, feeling distant and safe from his involvement. Show me that clipping. Dax sat down at the kitchen table. What's for dinner? He asked, reading, trying to change the subject. Meanwhile, Don Brisky was getting familiar with Conifer Cliffs, spending every minute he could with Samantha on her lunch breaks and after work. When Samantha was unavailable, he spent time in Roger's bar, getting to know local ranchers and sawmill workers. To save money, he maintained his residence at his camp on Dax's ranch near town. After many conversations, Don built trust with Roger Martin. He convinced Roger to introduce him to Sheriff Hank Biddleford, so the three could discuss Don setting up a still and supplying illegal whiskey to sell in Roger's bar. For a fee of 5% of gross sales, Biddleford agreed to shut down competition and run interference for the operation, keeping Brisky informed of any possible raid by the feds in plenty of time for him to relocate. Sheriff Biddleford also agreed to accommodate Don in introducing him to sheriffs in neighboring counties to make similar deals in the different domiciles. Since Dax couldn't ride due to his recent injuries, he offered Don a job helping John and his boys gather and move the cows to Cold Creek. Don was happy to work with Samantha's family, eat meals with them, and sleep in their barn. On Monday morning, Dax opened the bank with Fred and Samantha while John, Colm, and Quinn, along with Don Brisky, gathered cows into the farthest eastern pasture on Dax's ranch to shorten the drive to Cold Creek by 5 miles. By Wednesday, all the cows had been found, counted, and were ready to head out the gate on Thursday morning. Amos and Alton showed up mid-afternoon and laid out their bedrolls in John's barn next to where Don had slept the last 3 nights. You're sleeping in my barn tonight, and we'll sleep in your barn tomorrow night, John joked to Alton. Yeah, and we get to have a different cook every night for the next 3 nights, Amos joined in. Yep, so come on in and see what my cook is making for supper, John invited. Looks like it's going to be chilly tonight. The sky is really clear. We have lots of bedding, Alton said, following John into the house. Amos and Alton, this is my wife Elaine, my daughter Samantha, my sons Quinn and Cole, and this is Don Brisky. He helped us trail the cows up here from the Bitterroot. I met Amos and Alton at the New Year's party in Granite, Elaine stated. How are your wives? You two are brothers-in-law, aren't you? Yes, we are, and they are both just fine. Thank you for asking, Amos said. We'll be seeing a lot more of the Clarks and Coulters now that they will be working for Dax this winter, John explained. That's good. I have wanted to get better acquainted with Mildred and Sarah, Elaine commented, peeling potatoes for tonight's supper. After a big meal and a good visit, everyone retired for the night. At 5 a.m., John rang the dinner bell, calling Alton, Amos, and Don out of their bedrolls in the barn to a breakfast of hotcakes, bacon, eggs, and coffee. Tomorrow afternoon, drive up to Cold Creek and pick us up. I want to leave the horses with the cows so they will be there if we need them, John instructed Samantha. Okay, Dad, Samantha replied, topping off coffee cups, trying to hide her growing attraction to Don. It's starting to get light. Let's finish our coffee and get going. John pushed, wanting to get started. It's a little frosty this morning. At this temperature, we should be at my place by noon, Alton said, sliding his chair under the table. Each caught their horse and saddled up. Pretty big hump in your horse's back, Alton mentioned to Cole. Yeah, he likes to buck a little on cold mornings. It's fun for me. Colm grinned from ear to ear. It's always fun to watch a rodeo. Amos smiled, eyeing Colm grab his saddle horn and swing onto the tall bay. Even before his butt hit the saddle, the bay bucked blindly around the barnyard. Colm spurred him and slapped him across the ass with his rommel and pulled his head up. The horse stood and quivered. Colm patted him on the neck. Let's use all that energy to move some cows, you crazy old horse. That kid can ride, Amos exclaimed. He sure can, Alton agreed. He's just as crazy as his horse, Quinn said. I just hope neither of them gets hurt, John added. I thought my brother rode all the buck out of them, Don commented. They all mounted and headed to the field where the cows had been gathered. John opened the gate and got in a position to get a good count while the other four pushed them through the gate. Looks like we've got 'em all, John stated. Why don't Amos and Alton get in the lead and show them where to go? The rest of us can bring up the drag. Did you see that snowflake? Amos commented to the group. Those dark clouds moved in overnight. It's that time of year, John replied. We'd better get these cows closer to a haystack. Amos and Alton trotted to the lead. The snow started to fall. Soon, they were trailing the cows on the road up the clear river. Snowflakes got bigger. By mid-afternoon, Alton opened the gate to the 40-acre pasture adjacent to his barn where the cows would spend the night. It's really putting her down, Alton declared to Amos, walking to the middle of the road to head the cattle into the gate. Looks like it's about 8 inches deep already, Amos said, snow piling on his hat, chaps, and shoulders. We'll need to feed them some hay. You stay here and head them in the gate. I'll catch the team and hook them up to the sleigh. It won't take too long to feed with 6 of us pitching. Do you have 6 pitchforks? Amos asked. I think only 5, Alton replied, mounting his horse. Bring everyone to the barn as soon as you get all the cows in the pasture. I'm going to feed the haystacks outside the barn first, so it won't spoil from being wet too long. We'll be down there by the time you get the team hitched up, Amos said. Looks like we're there. Amos is heading them into a pasture, Colm shouted. Dax is the luckiest guy I've ever seen. John smiled at Colm. We made it to a haystack in the nick of time. If we had come tomorrow, those cows would have been way too hungry. Hold up a little. Don't crowd them. I don't want to tear down the fence. The 4 sat on their horses, letting the herd file through the narrow gate. Alton went to hook up the team so we can feed a load of hay. We need to help him so we can get inside, dry our clothes, and get warm, Amos said. It's so wet out here, my pipe tobacco won't burn. They rode to the barn where Alton's team was ready. They tied their horses up and hoisted themselves onto the sleigh. I only have 5 pitchforks, and there are 6 of us. Someone gets to rest, I guess. Alton laughed. If you haven't noticed, it takes 2 arms to run a pitchfork, and I only have 1, John chuckled. Oh yeah, I didn't think about that because you seem to be able to do everything, John. I guess we have the right amount of everything, Alton said apologetically. Alton pulled the sleigh up close to the haystack, and the 5 men with pitchforks climbed onto the top of the stack and pitched hay onto the bed of the sleigh. Holy shit, boys, get back on the sleigh. I just dug into a bear that's hibernating in the stack, Amos yelled. Everyone saw the bear roll out onto the ground and sleepily tried to get its bearings. Alton snapped the reins on the 2 Belgians' butts, and the sleigh left the stackyard on a trot with all 4 men and 2 boys looking back at the bear, wondering what happened to his restful winter sleep. Go over to the barn, Amos told Alton. I'll get my .30-30 out of my truck and shoot him. We can have some bear steaks. Better bear steaks than no steaks at all, Alton smiled, reining the team back to the barn. Looks like he's heading into the trees over there, Amos pointed. I'll get on my horse and get him. You guys go ahead and finish loading the sleigh. Alton drove the team back to the stack. I guess it's safe here now. That's a first for me. I've never dug a bear out of a haystack before. First for me too, John seconded. I hope it's the last. Can't blame the bugger. It looks like a nice place to hibernate. Colm dug vigorously into the stack, but Quinn, as usual, was in slow motion. Come on, Quinn. I'll have the wagon loaded before you get started, Colm urged. It's a sleigh, stupid, Quinn replied, ignoring the point. Don pitched steadily, listening to the exchange between Colm and Quinn. Alton jumped off the sleigh and pitched the hay from the ground where the bear had exited the stack. Looks like a load. Let's go feed it and come back for another. They pulled up to the gate. Colm jumped off the sleigh and ran to open it. The team pulled the sleigh through and stopped automatically, knowing the routine. The cows were still bawling, looking for their calves, but when they saw the hay, they ran for it. Colm pitched the hay off each side of the sleigh as fast as he could. Don't go so fast, Colm. If you make the piles too big, they will waste it. Make little piles, and they will eat it better, John explained. So, this is a slow job. This would be good for Quinn, Colm giggled. John did not respond, even though he agreed, looking at Quinn leaning on his pitchfork. Suddenly, they heard a gunshot. Sounds like the bear meat is closer to the kitchen, Alton hollered. And plenty of bear grease for the axles on the wagons, John added. Glad we get to eat the bear instead of the bear eating us. For a moment, I wondered which it would be. Too bad that old sow chewed Dax up. Alton grinned at Colm. You know they always eat the littlest one first. No, sir. They eat the slowest one first, and I can outrun all of you, Colm retorted. The snowstorm evolved into a whiteout of big, fluffy flakes whizzing horizontally. Even though the barn was not far away, the crew on the sleigh could not see it through the blizzard. The cows followed the sleigh, and the hay was devoured as soon as it hit the ground. When the sleigh was raked clean, Alton swung by the barn. Quinn and I will unsaddle the horses and put them away while you guys haul another load, John said. I think we are in the way, anyhow. John and Quinn jumped off, and Alton, Dawn, and Colm returned to the stack and pitched on another load. The snow piled up as they fed. That's all they're getting today, Alton declared as Colm raked the last of the load off the deck. Let's get the team put away and get to the house. I'll bet Sarah has the stove stoked up so we can get warm. But it's so nice out here, Colm said. Probably as nice as it's going to get until April, Alton grinned, wiping an icicle off his mustache. He parked the sleigh and unhitched the team. At this rate, we'll be lucky to be able to find the sleigh in the morning. The team sauntered into their stalls in the barn and waited for Alton to give them each a coffee can full of oats. Colm and Dawn removed the team's harness and hung it on spikes driven into the vertical logs that supported the barn's roof. Let's go to the house. I'll turn out the team after they finish their oats, Alton offered. When they exited the barn, Amos drove up with a dressed-out bear on the back of his international truck, exposing the bear's ribcage. Amos observed the day's snow with worry. I think you should load up hay in the morning and have the cows follow you up to my place. I'm heading home while I can still make it in my truck. In the morning, I'll come down to meet you with hay from my place, and you can turn around and go home. It will be easier to get the cows to follow a pile of hay than it will be to drive them, Amos said to Alton. Oh yeah, tie our saddle horses to the back of the sleigh. I think we'll need them up at my place before we need them here. That sounds like a good plan, Alton replied. You need some help putting the chains on your truck, Colm asked. Never turn down help, especially when it involves lying down in the snow under the truck, Amos said. Colm grabbed a tire chain and threw it over the left rear tire, crawled under the truck, and buckled it. Dawn did the same on the right side. Pull ahead a little so we can buckle the outside one, Colm hollered. Amos pulled ahead a foot or two, and Colm and Dawn buckled the outside of the chains together. That was easy, Amos laughed. See you guys halfway to my place in the morning, Amos yelled, chugging off in the International, the bear riding on the truck's bed. Alton led Colm, John, Quinn, and Dawn into the house. They removed their wet coats, chaps, oilcloth ponchos, and hats and hung them on wall pegs behind the pot-bellied stove. Alton told John their new plan for the next day, and John agreed. I have a new plan too, he said, looking at Quinn. First thing in the morning, I want you to ride home and tell Samantha not to drive over here tomorrow. We can all ride our horses home. I don't think the Model T can get through the snow. Quinn looked relieved. Going home a day or two early suited him just fine. While Sarah and Kana prepared supper, the crew sat around the big kitchen table. How was school today, son? Alton asked Sean. It was okay, I guess, but I would have rather been helping you, Dad. This is his first year in school, and he doesn't like it very well, Alton said to the crew. I wish I could trade places with him. I didn't like school too well when I was there, but now I am realizing what I missed. There were so many things I could have learned if I had applied myself. Amos and I only went so we could see Sarah and Mildred every day. How was your day, Kana? I love school, Kana answered her dad. What grade are you in? John asked. I'm 13. I'm in the 8th grade, Kana answered with pride. You'll graduate in the spring, John queried. Yes, I'll have to go stay in Brookston with my aunt and uncle next year until I graduate from high school. We lost our school teacher last spring and haven't been able to find another one, so my boys haven't gone to school this year. My daughter Samantha graduated from high school last spring. Quinn finished the 9th grade, and Colm finished the 8th grade, John said, sipping his coffee. Kana skipped the 6th grade. She's a good student, Alton bragged. Good for you, Kana, John congratulated her. Thank you, she bowed proudly. Sounds like you better come down to Conifer Cliffs and be the teacher, Colm said, winking at her. How much does it pay? Kana giggled. You would get to see me every day, Colm smiled, repeating his wink. I think I need to teach you a thing or two, all right. She shook the ladle at him before slipping it into the gravy bowl. After supper, Sarah showed John, Quinn, Colm, and Don a warm place on the porch to roll out their beds. After the cold day outside, a good supper, and the heat of the stove, sleep was the only option for all of them. Kana woke an hour earlier than usual with a smile on her face that she couldn't wash off. She spent extra time brushing her long auburn hair, looking into the mirror, wishing she didn't have so many freckles. She thought her brown eyes were pretty, but she didn't like her narrow jawline and her nearly pointed chin. She wondered if Colm thought she was pretty. She wondered what it would be like to have a boyfriend. Every boy she knew, she had known from birth and gone to school with since 1st grade, but this new boy tugged on her heartstrings. She hoped to get to know him better. She tiptoed to the kitchen and stoked the fire from the dying embers. She heated the big coffee pot and was mixing hotcake batter when her mother appeared. What are you doing up so early? Her mother asked. Couldn't sleep, she answered. So, you got up and fixed your hair special. Sarah grinned. It never hurts to look nice. She smiled, curling a lock around her finger with her thumb. No, I suppose it doesn't. Her mom lifted her eyebrows, realizing for the first time that her daughter was growing up. Sarah and Kana heard a commotion from the porch and noted that the crew must be up. Colm appeared by the pot-bellied stove and gathered his dried socks and boots. Did you sleep well? Kana asked. Okay, I guess, except for Dad grinding his teeth all night. Colm pointed to his dad as he entered the room. He sounded like a threshing crew. He was snoring too. But other than that, it was great. I wasn't lucky enough to sleep to that fine music, Kana giggled. Well, here's the band. Maybe he can snooze off at breakfast and grind you out a snorting tune. Maybe we can fill his mouth with hotcakes, and that will quiet his grinding, she smiled. Yeah, and be sure to keep him awake so he doesn't snore, Colm remarked. Alton came into the kitchen and tore off a piece of a hot cake Kana had just taken off the griddle. You look very pretty this morning, Kana, he mentioned. Thank you, Dad, Kana blushed. I fixed my hair nice this morning, too. Colm showed off his cowlicks. It's a hairdo from the future. The only thing that will make it look better is to put my hat on. Kana couldn't stop thinking about Colm. He was so cute to her and funny. She grabbed a hotcake cooled enough to handle and sailed it across the room to him. Sit down and eat your breakfast, she ordered as he caught it with his left hand. Yes, ma'am, he obeyed, taking his place at the table next to Dawn. Kana set a plate piled high with hotcakes on the table, followed by a bowl of butter and a glass bottle of hot maple syrup. Sarah finished loading a platter full of alder smoked bacon and served it to the hungry crew. More coffee, anyone? She asked, going around the table to fill cups. Where's your brother? Kana asked Colm. I can't break him of sleeping in, John said disgustedly. I told him if he didn't get up, he would miss breakfast. He didn't get up, so he missed it. That's okay, I'll eat his. Colm took another hot cake and a piece of bacon. At the kitchen sink, John poured some cold water into his empty coffee cup. I need to get Quinn headed home to stop my daughter from trying to drive over here to pick us up. I don't want her to get stuck in the snow. He took the cup, walked onto the porch, and dumped it on Quinn's face. Get your ass up now. Saddle your horse and ride home. You missed breakfast, and you're sleeping in all the time is getting on my nerves. Quinn jumped up, got dressed, rolled up his bed, and hoofed it to the barn without uttering a word or showing his face in the house. Are you ever going to stop eating? Cana asked Colm. I love to eat, and I like talking to the cook, Colm replied with his mouth full. I hope we can make it back here tonight, so Cana and I can dance to the music of Dad snoring. I could break out my guitar if you want to start before he goes to sleep, Alton offered. Good idea, Dad, Cana giggled. We're not getting back here if we don't leave now, John commanded. Let's get going. They walked to the barn in wet, knee-deep snow that was still falling. Where have you been, Quinn? I forgot that you were with us, Colm teased. Quinn mounted his horse and rode away, carrying his sulky look with him. John grabbed Colm's collar and warned, Leave it alone, Colm. The more you kick a turd, the worse it stinks. You mean Quinn's a turd? Colm asked. You know that's not what I meant. When there is trouble, the more you talk about it, the worse it gets. So leave it alone, John said. Colm always pushed his limits, but he knew when to quit when it came to his dad. John, Colm, and Don caught and saddled their horses. Alton harnessed his team and hooked them to the sleigh. Leave your horses in the barn until we get the sleigh loaded so your saddles don't get wet, Alton said. Once loaded and in the field, Alton drove the team through the cows, pitching a little hay off to them. All the cows followed the load out the gate and up Cold Creek while John, Colm, and Don followed the herd on their horses. The sleigh and the led cows waded in knee-deep snow, but as the rest of the herd followed, tromping it down, the snow packed into a sheet of ice. In 2 hours, Alton saw Amos coming toward him in the distance with another load of hay as planned. Alton pitched off his load and stopped to switch the saddle horses from the back of his sleigh to Amos's. He let the cows go by him, then returned to Juniper Junction. Amos turned around and pitched his hay for the cows to follow him to Cold Creek. 2 hours later, Amos drove into his field, which was their destination, where he pitched off the rest of the hay. 2 loads for 700 pairs of cows and calves were not enough. Amos, Colm, and Don spent the rest of the afternoon feeding 6 more loads to satisfy the 1,400 empty stomachs. Looks like it's going to take 7 or 8 loads a day, John reasoned. Should I leave Colm here to help you, Amos? The cows got the road tromped down so Alton can drive up here to help me, but we could use an extra hand, especially when we start calving. If it keeps snowing, Alton can stay here if the county doesn't plow the road. It's starting to get dark. Better come in and spend the night. Amos invited Colm, Dawn, and John. Mildred had started a venison stew right after breakfast and let it simmer throughout the day. When the cold, wet crew came into the house, they were greeted by a roaring fire in the pot-bellied wood stove, the rich aroma of stew, and freshly baked bread. They hung up their wet coats on a crude clothesline Amos had strung around the mud room to take advantage of the stove's heat. After supper, John, Colm, and Dawn rolled out their beds on the rough sawn red fir floor in the sitting room off the kitchen. I don't know what we did before they made oil canvas. It's certainly good to keep my bedroll dry, John commented. Things are changing so fast. Every day, they make something new and useful. I wonder what it will be tomorrow. Mildred queried aloud. Even though Colm was asleep, he heard the snoring and grinding of teeth on the floor next to him throughout the night. Finally, the smell of coffee rousted him. Colm dressed and greeted Mildred in the kitchen. Can I help you with breakfast? Colm asked. You can slice some bacon while I mix the pancake batter, Mildred replied gratefully. Is it already morning? Amos grumbled, stumbling into the kitchen. Must be, John moaned. I'm sure glad I don't have to try to wake up Quinn again this morning. We sure don't have to prod Cole, Amos stated. John nodded. He's always the first one up. He stokes the fire, making it warm for everyone else without being asked. I'm proud of him. He's a good boy. Are you sure you don't mind leaving him here? Amos asked. Since he can't go to school at home, he might just as well be here working, John replied. What's for breakfast? Amos roared, sitting down at the table. He grabbed Harold, who was rubbing the sleep out of his eyes. Good morning, Dad, Harold grumbled. What are you going to teach your teacher today? Amos asked. I got so far ahead in school, they made me take a year off, Cole giggled. I'm glad to have such a smart boy to help me this winter. After you wade in the snow for a few months, I'll bet you will want to go back to school, Amos teased. I already finished the 8th grade, Holmes stated, setting down a plate of hotcakes. You sit down and eat your breakfast, and thanks for your help, Mildred said appreciatively. Harold's little sister Karen came in, dragging her blanket and carrying her teddy bear. She headed straight to her dad, sitting at the end of the table. He picked her up, set her on his knee, and filled her mouth with the hotcake on his fork. Our bellies are full, and it's getting light. I'll bet the cows are hungry, Amos stated. We better get after it. Another day, another dollar in the hole, John remarked, looking at the snow still falling, knowing the cows would be eating expensive hay. That's what Dax bargained for when he bought those old cows. Too bad he got hurt and missed trailing the cows up here, Amos chuckled. Just another day, milk the cow, hitch up the team, feed 8 loads of hay, unhook the team, and go to bed. Just another of the same. Lights are coming down the lane. It must be Alton. John and Don saddled their horses for the 30-mile ride back to Conifer Cliffs. Amos, Alton, and Colm harnessed the team and started the daily routine that would last through the winter until the snow was gone and the spring grass turned the hillsides green.